Welcome back to the Hungarian History Podcast, the only English voice focusing entirely on Hungarian history. I am Szántai Gábor, and in today's episode we turn to the summer of 1552 to a small crumbling fortress in the Börzsöny Hills in Hungary. Here, Captain Szondy György and less than 200 men faced the might of the Ottoman army. This is not just the story of a siege, it is the story of honor, sacrifice, and the making of a legend. The following text is an extract from my book called 33 Castles, Battles, Legends, a dramatized story based on contemporary sources. Here it is. The Siege of Drégely Castle, 1552. Szondy György put down his quill after signing his name on the last letter he was going to send to Archduke Maximilian for reinforcement. At least he should send some powder and bullets, if nothing else, he thought to himself as he looked out of the window. There was not much to see. The blackened walls of the old tower of Drégely Castle were pointing accusingly towards the summer sky. The castle had been struck 3 months ago by a lightning bolt that had exploded the gunpowder that was stored there. 4 people died, and it was a wonder that the tower didn't collapse. The carpenters tried to repair the cracks and gaps with makeshift scaffolding, but Szondy was sure that even a milder storm would finish it, let alone a cannonball of the enemy. Even Bishop Thurzó visited last month to assess the damage and sent a few masons to salvage whatever was possible. It is fortunate that His Majesty Archduke Maximilian had not paid me his debt, so I had no money to buy more ammunition. Had the tower been fully packed with good black powder, the whole decrepit castle would have gone up in smoke, he added in himself. Indeed, the Archduke owed him 322 gold forints on behalf of the king. Drégely Castle used to be well paid, from the priest's pocket, but since Bishop Várdai Pál died a few years ago, the Habsburgs had been in charge of this stronghold, and the stream of the people's regular pay began to flow through the desert of the treasury, which swallowed it thirstily. Stronghold, the delicately carved thin walls, with their elegant Gothic pillar heads, had been serving the needs of the hunting bishops in the forests of the Börzsöny mountain. It was rather a reinforced palace from a peaceful age when cannons were regarded as a laughingstock. The captain shook his head. Sebestyén, give this letter to a messenger and have it sent to Pozsony right away, and fetch some wine, he said to his young page, a lad who was learning in his court with his friend Libardi. They were both typical mischievous 16-year-olds, with long dark hair and with a moustache-like shadow under their noses. The lads were good at singing and could play the lute, but Szondy was not content with their horsemanship just yet. As for their knowledge of the sword, Szondy himself was teaching them the art of the long sword, according to the school of the great Italian master Fiore dei Liberi. He recalled his days as a page in the court of his siege lord and benefactor Révai Ferenc, the vice palatine of the kingdom. In those days he was not called Szondy, but was known as Suhó. Szond was just his home, a small border market town in the south. Lord Révai found him there, and decided he was talented. Why, even burgher boys could rise in rank if they rode the horse decently enough and had a way with the saber. In his court there was a great demand for youngsters to defend the southern borders of the kingdom. The young Suhó was given a knightly education, and was taught by the same Italian fencing masters as his lord's sons. Szondy sighed and threw himself into the bishop's armchair. Yes, that was a different time and age, hundreds of miles away. Hungary had just one king instead of two, and the Turks were just getting ready to invade the country in the not far away Serbia, occasionally sinking their teeth into the flesh of the borderland. Sebestyén entered with the big copper jar and poured the cool red liquid into a goblet for him. My son, I was just 4 years older than you when I rode out beside my liege lord Révai to the field of Mohács. That was my first big battle, if we do not count the small raids and counter-raids on the borderland before that. Alas, I saw young King Lajos with my very eyes. The page listened attentively to him and thought, Sweet God, now the old lion is going to tell me the entire battle story, all over again, and how he saved his lord's life, and how they escaped miraculously and arrived in the north in Sklobina Castle, where he was rewarded. He looked at the captain. The almost 50-year-old warrior was smoothing his enormous moustache in order to swallow the wine decently. Szondy was a broad-shouldered, bull-like man with seasoned wrinkles on his face, and indeed he dreamily told the lad the whole story. And Lord Révai made me a knight, and this is how I became a nobleman, and I am no longer called Suho. King Ferdinand gave me my hometown, Szond, near the Serbian border. One day I might be able to take it into my possession, when we chase the Turks out from there. Yes, my lord, said the page. Both of them knew it would not happen soon. Since Mohács in 1526, the Ottomans came even farther to the north, and through Buda in 1541. Now, 11 years after this, they were here in the northern hills, trying to cut the remaining country into two. Just Drégely and some other pitifully weak palisades and makeshift forts were blocking their way. But enough of this. Go and take your friend Libardi to the cellar, and issue wine to the soldiers. Here are the keys. Tonight they can have a double portion. No wonder the captain was so talkative to the lad. He had nobody to talk to, since his co-captain, Bekefalvi Gergely, left the castle before the Turks began their march there. He was complaining because of his pay and said he had 3 unraised children to take care of at home. Who could he share his worries with? Szondy admittedly would have fled, too. But he couldn't endure the shame before his liege lord and the king. He was torn by despair. To whom could he tell that he had only 60 infantrymen and 16 hussars, 1 artilleryman, and 3 castle guards under his pay, altogether 80 souls? That the king allowed him to hire only 40 more men, and the wealthy Selmecbánya city sent him merely 26 soldiers. It is said that each burgher in that town had a share in a silver or copper mine, and they stored fabulous fortunes in their cellars, closed in strong barrels. Was he not defending them? The narrow-sighted, tight-fisted bastards. The road which went through Drégely was heading to Selmecbánya, going through the stone bridge and the Ipoly river, guarded by another small castle called Ság. Those fat-minded burghers knew that Drégely was blocking the road that would lead to their treasure vaults, but they were just rolling their eyes and gave no real help. Last month, Szondy sent one of his 2 cannons to Körmöcbánya, the gold-mining town of the crown, to have the old battlesnake repaired. He was expecting it back this week, but only a letter arrived, stating that the town needed the king's approval before carrying out the repairs. The Turks were a mere half-day march away, and Szondy knew the cannon wouldn't come home in time. A few years ago, Szondy had recommended to the military council to have Drégely and Ság castles pulled down, and instead of the two old castles, have a new fort erected on the nearby marshland, studded by earthen bastions in Italian fashion. The council liked the concept, but claimed they had no money. There was a knock on the door, and Sebestyén ushered a dust-covered soldier in the room. It was Zoltai János, his youngest officer. His blond hair was wet, and his clothes were soaked through because of the heat. At ease, my son. Drink this before you tell your news. Szondy poured some wine with his own hands, and while he was quenching his thirst, the captain dismissed his page with a glimpse. Sir, I have come all the way from Ság Castle. The castle is on fire, and it has been abandoned. The Turks? No, sir, not them. Sir Captain Jakusic believed he couldn't withstand the Pasha Ali's 12,000-strong armies. So he took his 300 men and joined the forces of General Erasmus Stoffel at Leva Castle. The general's army is camping a couple of miles further to the north. And are they coming to our rescue? How many troops does he have? General Devil, or Ördög, as we call him, has 10,000 good German, Italian, and Spanish mercenaries under his command, but he has no authorization from the king to attack the Turks, sir, although he has sent a messenger to Vienna to ask for permission. Zoltai wiped his moustache and put the cup back on the table. He added with a half-smile, he promised to light great bonfires on the hilltops to frighten the enemy and to give us hope. Szondy pursed his mouth, so his delicate, unique Hungarian curves couldn't leave his lips, but the full attention of all the saints of the heavens and all the demons of hell were suddenly focused on General Toffel. Nobody knew at this time that the curse would eventually hit the coward German a month later, when after having been shamefully defeated by Hamid Adimali at the Battle of Palasht, he would be taken to Istanbul, where he would finish his life gruesomely, impaled in front of the Sultan's very eyes. The next morning Szondy and his 146 men were watching how Pasha Hadim Ali of Buda was arranging his troops in 3 camps, deploying them to block the road to Selmecbánya and Toffel's army. The Pasha was convinced that the Germans had left this toy castle in his way just as a bait. He had an earthen rampart built and lined up his cannons there. Ali the Gelded was not a bloodthirsty man. Soon the Pasha sent an envoy to the captain of the Győrs to surrender the castle. To his greatest surprise, the envoy returned at once. The moment the messenger left the gate, 3 hussars rode out and set the hay piles in front of the walls on fire. A few light riders, the Akinjis, rode there to salvage some of the fodder, but they were shot at from the towers. The envoy bowed before the old Pasha and waited to be addressed. Tell me the answer of the infidels' leader, as it was told. Great Pasha, may Allah adorn your way to victory with your heads. The captain of this small place is called Szondy György, and he looks as if he has lost his senses. For he refused your merciful offer, and said He had got up this morning too late to surrender the castle. He firmly decided to die with honor rather than throw himself into the yoke of slavery. He would not like to be dragged around like a slave, with a chain on his neck to be sold. Ali was slightly amused by the reply. He turned to the Aga of the top-shoe soldiers, the officer of his artillery. Bismillah. Let it be as Allah wants it. Show me how your men can handle the new French cannons. The Topches bent over their long bronze bombardiers and aimed them at the tower at the main gate of the castle. 3 wall-breaching cannons and 6 howitzers broke both the peaceful summer afternoon and the stones of the tower to shreds. Cranes flew up from the roof of the inner castle that lay on the hilltop. The birds circled in the air before flying away to the east. The Turks thought it a good sign, because the tame cranes of the borderland castles were always regarded with superstition. After the third volley, the whole construction suddenly collapsed in a huge cloud of dust, burying some of the jaws under the rubble. The Pasha has been expecting it and signaled the Aga of the Janissaries to proceed. The Aga cast a contemptuous look at the small castle and flourished the green flag of the Prophet. 3,000 throats bellowed, Allahu Akbar! And the tall, white-hatted, disciplined Janissaries rose and began their menacing march toward the pile of broken stones that only moments before used to be the tower. The musical band was playing victorious tunes and the grim soldiers were singing loudly. Inside the castle, nothing stirred. Szondy saw the red feathers of Zoltai's helmet flicker. Then his officer was buried under the flying stones and shreds of timbers of the fallen gate tower. He made the sign of the cross, motioned with his hand to his men in the lower castle's yard. The big old guns crackled and spat nails and small bullets as the white heads and faces showed up on the top of the stone pile. The long lances were immediately leveled, thrust at the Janissaries climbing above the rubble. The singing had gradually ceased, and the cries to Jesus and Mary subdued it, when a green flag with Arabic letters was torn off and trampled into the blood-soaked dust under the defenders' legs. After the Janissaries withdrew, the utterly surprised Pasha sent the dismounted Akinjis with ladders to scale the walls from all sides. Captain Szondi drew the razor-sharp longsword he had been cherishing since 1526 and the death of King Lajos. His men received the enemy with sabres and battle-hammers along the walls. It was almost dark when the second assault was beaten back. Szondy had a dozen or so old guns from the time of King Matthias. They were added to the few muskets and shot volley after volley at the running Moslems. Amid a tremendous roar, the captain's only cannon was sending an occasional carved marble ball from the height of the inner castle's tower. The rising moon shed light on a much less conceited Turkish camp, where Pasha Hadim Ali was given a report of many hundreds of casualties that he shouldn't have afforded. After this unlucky day had gone, Pasha Ali decided not to take any chances. He expected General Taufel's attack every hour and didn't want to waste more men nor break the Muslim warrior's morale. He acknowledged the defiant valiancy of his petty captain, however insane and suicidal it was. He smelled heroism here, all the same. Ali shrugged and issued his order to the Aga of the Topches. Shell the place to shreds. The Topches took delight in systematically turning the whole fort into burning embers, beginning with the palisade walls of the lower castle, then breaking the fragile Gothic towers and the buildings of the inner castle into fragments. After 2 days of terrible bombardment, there came no shots any more from the pitiful remains. The defenders either all died or ran out of gunpowder. The 4th day of the siege has come. Bonfires were burning on the tops of the neighboring hills, which betrayed to friend and foe that no reinforcement would dare to relieve their defenders. Szondy knew they were doomed. The cannons were silent and there was really not much to shot at, except broken stones and fallen roofs. The captain had emptied the lower castle right after the first 2 assaults and hid his remaining warriors in the cellars of the inner castle, among the women, folks, and the children. He had only 3 dozen people left and no gunpowder to fight with. His men were desperate. They had all sworn to fight to their last breath and would not forsake the king's house. A lonely figure in a black robe was approaching the castle from the enemy's camp. The man stumbled through the loose stones of the outer wall and climbed up the hillside to the place that used to be the gate of the inner castle. Szondy could make him out now. It was Father Márton, the priest of Orosi village. They all knew him well. The priest was a good man. He said he was sent by Pasha Ali and begged the captain to surrender and save their lives, telling him that the Pasha seemed to be a reasonable man who valued their bravery and steadiness. But now everything was in vain. There would be no help arriving. Why should they waste more blood? Father Márton pleaded with tears in his eyes. The Pasha will wait only until midday for me to go back with your answer, sir. Well, then we have a couple of hours to get ready, don't we? For leaving the castle? Asked Father Márton. No, Father, to prepare our souls. Would you give us the last rites? Please shrive and absolve us, Father, as it is befitting. Upon saying this, Szondy summoned his 2 pages, Sebessy and Libardi. They were there at once, in ragged and blood-stained clothes. The boys had taken their manly shares from the first fight, and their lord knighted them during the following night. Sebestyén, my son, go and open the secret tunnel for the womenfolk. Now they must depart and leave their husbands and sons. They have to reach safety, while the Turks are waiting for our reply. Libardi, have the men bring out all the valuables we had hidden in the cellars. Build a pile and throw wood on it. Be dismissed. While Father Márton was completing his priestly work among the soldiers, Szondy fetched the keys of the dungeon and opened its door. Down in there he had 12 Ottoman prisoners of war, marauders and rapers. They were caught while burning peasants' homes, scum of the earth, riff-raff irregular villains from the Balkans. But 2 Turkish captives were of nobler kin, captured during a duel. He sought them out. Ahmed, Ibrahim, get on your feet and follow me, he ordered in Turkish. When they went up to the yard, Szondy saw that his pages had done his bidding, and were standing to attention. The captain felt pity for them. They were so young and talented. His plan was taking shape, though. Yes, they deserved a longer life, he thought, and told them his new orders. Get yourself washed and choose the best clothes from the valuable items piled up high in the middle of the yard. Then make Ibrahim and Ahmed do the same. When they were ready, Szondy opened his strongbox, which had been brought to the courtyard, along with the silver and gold items from the chapel and from the treasury chamber of the palace. He measured 2 sizable bags of gold to each page, and to each young Turkish prisoner. Now, Father Márton, listen to my word. We and our men are unable to go out of here. But I am sending my 2 good pages to Pasha Ali and these 2 Turkish noble lads as a ransom for their lives. Tell him to give my lads a valiant education, and when grown, let them have their freedom to choose their fate. As for me, a decent burial of my remains would be much appreciated. Now I ask for your blessing, Father, and then be off with you. Noon is almost here. Pasha Ali the gelded was smoothing his white beard, but his face was dark. He was an honest man, and silently nodded in agreement and accepted Szondy's last will. The pages were ordered to join his retinue, and they were made to stand in a good place to overlook the final assault against the castle. The Aga of the Janissaries was agitated and wanted to take revenge. He was nervously playing with the grip of his sabre. The assault was launched, and the roaring crowd was rushing up to the inner castle to finish the defenders off. There was no music this time. This final fight lasted for 2 full hours, and Pasha Ali considered its outcome a miracle. He had to see his best troops slaughtered and beaten again, turning tail, howling, and fleeing down the slopes bloodied and humiliated by a handful of raging daredevils. Shaking his head, Ali sent his officers with his whips to turn the runners back. When they were beaten into submission and thronged up in the yard of the lower castle, Szondy and his few men sallied out. The Hungarians fell on them like scavengers, led by a figure in shining armor. The bulky man was wielding a long sword that easily outdid any Turkish sabres or Persian scimitars. The throng yielded before the long blade. It was the last stand, the time of the bloody harvest. Shoot him, ordered the Aga of the Janissaries, and it was obeyed. The first bullet hit the captain's knee and brought him down. 2 Akingis threw themselves on him, but he fought back on one knee and sliced them with an elegant sweeping move of his long sword. More Moslems were cut down. The man seemed invincible. The Janissaries loaded their guns again. Several musket muzzles rose, and the French-made gun's ammunition pierced his breastplate easily from this close distance. The angry Janissaries pushed into the inner castle, but came back soon, even angrier. Their Aga rushed to Szondy's body and separated his head with his sabre, spat in his eyes, then thrust the severed head on a long spear. It was planted into the remains of the first tower for everyone to see. Pasha Ali learned not much later that the Janissaries had rushed angrily back again, because they found no booty in the castle. No gold, no silver, no women to rape, nor children to sell. All they saw were the corpses of splendid Hungarian stallions slaughtered by their previous owners, thrown next to the huge bonfire that had consumed all the precious things they wanted to have. 12 Muslim prisoners were hanging from a makeshift gallows tree, and everything was sticky with decay. Ali let the spear with the head stay there until he had Szondy's body carried to the proper place, selected for his burial. The Pasha was a wise man, and knew that his Janissaries needed a lesson, so he had his army aligned next to the Gyaur captain's tomb. Ali felt a growing dislike towards the Aga of the Janissaries, so he ordered that he and no one else should fetch Szondy's head and fit it next to his body. The Janissaries had to watch silently how the infidel priest called Márton finished the last rituals of the captain, who had humiliated them so much. Hadim Ali, the gelded, Pasha of Buda Castle, delivered a funeral speech in Szondy's honor. May Allah bless him who had fallen in an honorable fight, and give him eternal place in exchange for his virtue. Let this spear be struck in this tomb, so the wind can blow the horse tail on it, to show the resting place of a true warrior. And you Janissaries, the elite troops of the bright-faced Padishah, you bear in mind that respect for the enemy may bring you sweet victory, while pride is a sin before Allah. Why do you think this captain was wearing no helmet when sallying out? He showed he was ready to die and not to be taken alive. Ponder on it before you meet the army of Erasmus Taffel, the German Jinn. Learn this lesson that this valiant man called Szondy has taught you. You pay the price for this knowledge dearly, inshallah. You have just heard the fall of Drégely Castle, where Szondy György chose death before dishonor, and where even the Ottoman Pasha bowed to the bravery of his foe. Next time we move from the brave stand of a single captain to the clash of thousands, when the armies of the Kingdom of Hungary and the Ottomans met in an open battle at Palást. Stay with me. It was the Hungarian History Podcast with Szántai Gábor. Goodbye, sziasztok, a viszonthallásra!